There's been a lot of conversation the last several months around college football on whether or not the playoff should be expanded or not. I've kind of given my opinion on it, but I wanted to have a little debate with somebody about it. And nobody better to do it than a guy from the Big Ten who, in reference, let's just be real. The Big Ten has kind of been up and down whether when it comes to expansion or not. And from what I've taken away from it, they're kind of split down the middle with it. You have some fan bases that say, let's do expansion. You have some fan bases as well that say, let's leave it at as it is at 12 teams. But we'll get into it and more. Welcome on Inside the Southern Sports Scene. Well, I'm your host, as always, Lucas Hill. Make sure you all do us a favor and hit the like, share, and subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notification so that you are notified every time we go live, post a new video, or post a new short on the Southern Sports Scene. Make sure you follow us on all of the socials and every video brought to you by our good friends over at Frost Buddy. Going over to frostbuddy.com. Use promo code SSS15 to get 15% off your first purchase. That is code SSS15 to get 15% off that first purchase. We also want to thank our good friends and partners over at Chike Nutrition. 20 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat, and 1 gram of sugar in every scoop of iced and or hot coffee for every scoop of Chike Nutrition coffee. Thank you to our friends at Buzzer as well for going over and download the Buzzer app so that if you can become a verified creator today. Got Sammy Jacobs on from Hoosier Huddle joining us once again. Sammy, appreciate you taking the time, my man. Good to have you on. Been following your content for a little while. Great that we finally get together. So how are you, man?
I'm doing well. College football is right around the corner. We got Big Ten Media Days coming up next week, so we'll be up in Chicago. We have SEC Media Days this week, and all the shenanigans that surround that, with guys getting kicked out and then filing federal lawsuits. So not at all a clown show down in Tampa this year. But yeah, let's. I wanted to start off on your listeners. I want to stay at 12, but I can make the argument for 24.
Right. I've definitely heard the argument before a lot, not just from Big Ten media, but everyone outside regarding from ACC and Big 12 as well. I think Big 12 media especially kind of wants expansion, because I've talked to a couple of guys around the Big 12, and they say, hey, look, expansion is going to benefit, but we'll obviously talk about that a lot more. But give me your thoughts on where we are with the current state of the playoff, and what, in your opinion right now, Sammy, do you want to see right now?
I want to see the decision get taken out of a committee's hands.
Yes.
There's so much disparity in strength of schedule, opponents. Do these guys actually watch the games? Is it most deserving? Is it best teams? Then you have Notre Dame, who's automatically in if they're in the top 12. And, for my argument for a 2014 playoff, they screw up my math so much, being an independent, which I think is good for the sport. But for trying to map it out, it's a pain in the rear end. So the current playoff, it's fine. There's too much. I think there's too much time between games. The season should not end on January 25th. And that's not even going to 24th. That's what's going to happen this year. I think it's 25th or 26th, whatever that Monday is. And it's entirely too long. You have 10 days between playoff games and things like that. And they got to work that stuff out. Getting rid of conference championship games is on the table, at least for a little bit. I thought, if Alabama didn't get in the playoff last year, the SEC probably just does away with the conference championship game. But there is so much money in doing that. So, yeah, that's, as I think Josh Pate said it best, it's like, when your parents are fighting and you have no bedtime. Hey, if they keep arguing, it's going to stay at 12. And personally, I'd like to see it contract, but that's not going to happen because, we live in the real world here. They're not going to contract. And it's going to expand, and it's going to expand either 16 or 24. probably more beyond that because they opened Pandora's box to this.
That is where I kind of want to hit, is because I have made this very loud and very clear. Expansion is going to be inevitable, like whether we like it or not. And unfortunately, with the business side of college football now playing a role over the past 5 years, media rights is going to take a bigger step forward. I primarily have said the Big Ten wants this expansion because Tony Petitti's a businessman. He's been in TV for almost the last 4 decades, was with CBS and then was with the MLB Network. He understands that there is money to be made when it comes to expansion. This is because if you do expand, the media rights ordeals doesn't go to all ESPN. It has to be ventured out elsewhere. Fox, CBS, NBC, just a few examples to list. They would all get a chance to broadcast their games, more playoff games, on their networks, which would create more revenue for their respective TV markets, which I get that part. I also don't think that you should expand past 16. I don't see a scenario where going to 24, in my opinion, it's not just stress when it comes to the extension of the season, if it does, which depending on what happens, if they do decide to expand, conference championships are undoubtedly about to go away. So that creates more for the TV media deals to go through. You have, arguably, you're accepting mediocrity in a sense.
Well, yeah, I mean the playoffs shouldn't expand past 6 or 8. There's never more than like 8 teams who could win it.
Right. That's why if we were to, I think, 2 or 3 years ago when we initially expanded, it should have gone at 12.
Yeah, I mean, I go 24 just because I want to see them go back to regional conferences, and no conference should have more than 10 teams. And that way you get a 9-game round robin schedule. Everybody plays everybody. There's no, like look at Penn State this year. Penn State's a dark horse pick for the playoff because they miss Oregon, Ohio State, Indiana, and those teams. Meanwhile, Ohio State plays Oregon, USC, Indiana, and it's just like,
right,
you can't compare these teams, at least based on strength of schedule. So if you go back to regionalized conferences, every conference champion win. It goes in, and you have a clear-cut conference champion.
Okay.
You don't need conference championship games unless you really want them. Maybe the group of 6 does it. So you'll have go back to your Pac-12 and stuff like that. If you make 10-team conferences, some people are going to get on the chopping block, but you get all your conference champions in. And then if you want to do whatever, the top 2 on each plus Notre Dame, that gives you 20. Notre Dame really screws up the math.
Right.
To be honest, to where, you could kind of go to an NFL model, and I don't want to make college football the NFL, but that seems what they're hell bent on doing.
It's inevitable at this point. I mean, we're already very close to it officially being another NFL.
They'll eventually figure it out. The college football is one of one, because the people who are fans of these teams have a stake in it. They went to school. Most of them went to school there. They have that pride in there, and things like that. That's why, sure, New York City has a huge TV market, but it's not a Rutgers city. It's everybody who graduated from their college roots for their teams, and stuff like that. So, yeah, just I don't know. I don't know if it's 100% inevitable, but it's going to happen until somebody gets smacked in the face with a kind of what happened in NASCAR, where it was huge. They got off at traditional dates. They stopped playing at traditional or racing at traditional tracks. They lost a couple superstar racers, retired and all that stuff, and popularity gone down. And they held on to the fact that, their diehards would come back, and they didn't. COVID hit it, and, sponsorships, or like, what are we paying $30 million to put a sticker on a car for that nobody's watching, which is it's eventually going to happen with college football. Kirk Cignetti said that, and I know it's a little hypocritical with him getting paid $13 million and stuff like that. There's got to be a cap at some point. And because athletic directors can't help themselves. How many times have we seen coaches, well, there's a rumor that this coach is going to take this job, and well, all of a sudden that coach gets an extension and he really didn't warrant it, and pay goes way up. I mean, Indiana did it with Tom Allen. There was a local reporter who was, well, Tom Allen might leave for Auburn or might leave for Florida State. And he got a sweetheart deal after that 2019 and 2020 seasons to where like the buyout was $30 million. And it's like, what do you do? Like, you're bidding against yourself. So the expansion, you got to keep the integrity of the regular season, which I think if you do the top two teams in each conference, it does. You're not having, 8-4, an 8-4 team get in because they finished fifth in the Big Ten or whatever, or 7-5 and sixth in the SEC because they play an SEC schedule. You earn your way in. It's an automatic bid. And that's what I would do with the 2014 playoff. It will not happen because they're not going to go back to regionalized conferences unless they grow a brain. Mm-hmm. But if you do, like if you had the Pac-10 back and you had that conference champion, and you try to make it, if you can make it where you have 12 10-team playoff or 10-team conferences, and you take the top two in each conference, who's saying no? Or you take whatever, you do your group of six, your 6 champions of your group of 6, and then you want to do your top 3 in the Power 4 or Power 5. Okay.
Interesting. So what if so on the regional conferences, what would be your 10? How would you organize the 12 regional conferences at that point in time?
Go back to the 80s. I mean, you do it. You bring back the old Big East, and I would throw Penn State in there. You bring back the original Big Ten, which was in Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan State, Michigan, Northwestern, Ohio State, Purdue, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and so on. And then you bring back the original Pac-10. You do the Southwest conferences. I mean, hell, you could even do it where it's like SEC East, SEC West again with 10-team divisions, and just do it that way. And if you want to play a conference championship, you can. These super leagues or super conferences, they're too big, and you can't tell who's who and all that stuff.
Do you think let's say that this, because obviously politics is going to play a role into this. I mean, I think you and I both know at this point, especially with the PCSA currently in effect, potentially going to the Senate floor right now. If this does not pass, let's say that the SEC decides to leave the NCAA. Let's say the Big Ten follows suit, which I believe that they would. I firmly believe that they would. And if eventually we create this Super League type of conference where I've been covering this for the last 3 years, Sammy. I've been talking about how we need to have a Super League for a very long time. And the way that it would work is that you'd have all these different teams, kind of like what you have. You have these different regional conferences. The way that you get into this Super League, especially if you're a G5 team, it depends on the strength of it depends on, well, not really strength of schedule. Depends on your overall record, how you recruit, and your market as well. If you're doing well over a certain period of time, you get bumped up to the Super League, and it bumps into several different tiers. And I go and look, this has been something that has been proposed. I think they have like 3 or 4 different tiers for each Super League at this point. Would you be in favor of something like that, depending on what happens with PCSA?
Probably not. I mean, it depends on who's in charge.
Okay.
If it's still Sankey and Petiti, I mean, it would be the same stuff under a different name. You know, they're still going to want the most teams in the playoff. They're still going to want that. You know, you're effectively killing off half of the sport. I mean, if not more than that. I mean, you know, what happens to the Big 12? What happens to the ACC? You know, a lot of these, even Power 4 schools, a lot like Bloomington's tiny. Bloomington has like 80,000 residents, and that's when I think students are in town. You know, there are a lot of outposts in the Power 4 that just aren't big markets, but they have people come out there, and it's, again, that's subjective to like recruiting rankings. You know, somebody's recruiting ranking, 247's recruiting rankings are different than Rivals and ESPN's and all that stuff. You could do television views, but it's all meaningless. You know, you're gonna. College football needs to be a regular season sport with a decent postseason instead of let's make it all about the playoffs and forget about the regular season, because the regular season is the best thing in sports. And that's what it is. And that's what it is. If you go to that Super League and you know, relegation and, you know, who gets relegated, how long do you get relegated, how long do you get bumped up, when do you do this, how often does it happen? I don't see it happening with 136 teams. Like, does North Dakota State get a shot to play a team like Purdue or Rutgers or to claim their spot? You know, is it the bottom 5 finishers in the Power 4 and the top 5 finishers in the group of 6? There's a lot of questions. We'll see what happens with the Senate bill. There's a lot of decent stuff in it. The Big Ten doesn't want it because the Big Ten doesn't want to give up their power. They're on the throne right now. They're the richest conference. They've won back-to-back national titles. They're favored to win another one this year. And it's why would they give that up? If the SEC wants to leave the NCAA, let them. College football doesn't, like, college sports can survive without the SEC. I mean, and it's more than just football. You're telling all your other teams and other sports to get out of the NCAA too. I mean, what needs to happen is there needs to be antitrust. You need those antitrust things to pass so that, you know, you don't get sued every time you try to pass a rule with eligibility and all of that stuff and transfer portal. And then you need somebody to get into the room and fix the calendar. I think if you fix all that stuff, the playoff is the least thing that you need to fix. And you don't need conference realignment or a Super League. You just need somebody with a brain in the room going, hey, this is stupid. Let's fix it.
So why do you think that's not possible at this point? Because the calendar's been the biggest issue in the last several years.
Because they're afraid of the NFL. And that's the problem, is that college football is afraid of the NFL. So they're not playing on Saturdays in December and, you know, late December and January because of the NFL playoffs. So you miss, like, if January 1st doesn't end up on a Saturday or Sunday, it throws off the schedule so much. And then you have the Army Navy, you know, needs their own week or whatever, which, look, it's one of the greatest rivalries in the sport. It's a game that's on my bucket list to go to, but that shouldn't hold up everything. There's a way to do it where, you know, play it on Thanksgiving Day, and that's your college football game. But again, you're afraid of the NFL and you don't want to go on Thanksgiving Day. So they just need to communicate, reach out for help, talk to the NFL, say, hey, this is our plan. Let's make it work. College football has done so much for free for the NFL. The NFL could start to give back, but college football has to ask.
What day do you think that the college football season should be over with? Beginning of January like it used to be?
Should be January 1st. And if we're being honest, it should be the Rose Bowl, should be the national title game every year. But I'm willing to negotiate it. Okay. At the latest, January 9th or whatever.
I think we're getting close to if we expand, depending on if they don't fix the calendar, we're looking at potentially we're looking at a February national championship, which is way too ridiculous at this point. But
you're going to get rid of conference championship games.
That's what my point is. If as soon as they get rid of conference championships, it's still going to end middle of January, close to the end of January.
Well, they're going to start a week early too. Like week 0 will be week 1.
So everybody's playing on week 0 now.
Yeah, but it becomes week 1, and then you have 2 bye weeks in there.
Okay. Interesting.
That's how I see it going. They're going to move everything up to week 0 and make that week 1. You could still play your whatever rivalry games Thanksgiving weekend, and then if you get rid of the conference title games, and you could play. If you really want to, you could play. Let me bring up a calendar here. You can play. You could play Army Navy that weekend of like the first weekend of December. And then that gives you could start the playoff December 12th. That gives you the 19th, 12th, 19th, 26th, and the Rose Bowl would be this year on a Friday, the 1st. You could have, you could do that. If they're going to keep the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day, which it's going to happen because the Rose Bowl is not going to budge, it should be the national title game, and you could get this playoff done by that time.
So as we kind of close out here, I know you've already made the statement you are against expansion at the moment, but you are open to it. Would you expand to 24? Would you stay under at least at 16? Or do you have another thing in mind? Or does it just depend on whether or not we go back to regional conferences?
If they're going to expand it to 24. Because if you expand it to 16, you're going to expand it to 24 eventually anyway. That's what we said when they expanded it from 2 to 4. We said they're going to expand it again. They expanded it to 12. Everybody said they're going to expand it again. And that's what's going to happen. They need to put in the legwork, talk to people about you could do football-only conferences too, and then keep everything else. I'm telling you, all these Olympic sports, they don't want to travel across country. It's so expensive. Right. And all these athletic departments are, crying for more money and asking fans for more money. It's not a model that's sustainable. And if you make a little bit less from TV revenue, but save on travel expenses, and, Maryland's the perfect example here. Maryland left the ACC where they had rivalries for 100 years, and they moved to the Big Ten. They haven't done anything in the Big Ten. They took their check and took their losses, and their fans don't care. Like, they're not interested. They don't want to see Maryland play Indiana or Ohio State or Michigan. They want to play Virginia. They want to play Duke. They want to play North Carolina. They want to play the people that they've hated for 100 years. That's what makes college sports great, is that you have rivals. Which, pro sports, they do, but it's not the same as college sports. They've been playing, Maryland had been playing Duke and North Carolina for 100 years. So right. They gotta figure that out. And, if it means accepting a little bit less money and going to regional rivalries, but you could expand it to 24 and make some money back there. That's what they need to do. Otherwise, just contract and either argue and stay at 12. But there needs to be somebody in charge and an adult in the room to put their foot down and say, this is dumb. This is stupid. What are we doing?
Who do you think that would be?
I don't know.
I can name off a list of names. Look, we've all joked about, man, Josh Pate's the next commissioner. Josh Pate seems like he's the only adult in the room when he talks about college football, when he talks about the background of it.
Yeah, sure. It's somebody like that, or do you bring in Nick Saban, which would piss off half the people anyway because it's an SEC versus Big Ten thing? Do you bring in like a commissioner by committee? Where you get which is kind of what the NCAA does. I mean, the NCAA, if they had any power, it would be fine. If they didn't get sued every 5 minutes because they have no antitrust protection, it would be fine. But they don't, and they're toothless right now. But yeah, somebody like Josh Pate, somebody with the best interest in sports, and people could vote on it.
The committee is a joke. And I know you kind of mentioned it already. The way that the selection process has been over the past 5 years has been completely ridiculous.
Got to get rid of that Tuesday night show. You got to. Like you
got to get rid of the freaking athletic directors that don't. Let's just be honest. They don't watch the games. They don't watch any of the games.
I mean, the right teams got selected last year. And I know Notre Dame fans will yell at me or whatever. But here's the thing. The process showed you that, Notre Dame was well ahead of Miami after losing 2 games. And then all of a sudden, Miami gets close enough and Miami jumps them in a week where the result was the same. And it's like, that does not make sense. Even though you got the correct teams in, that your process does not make sense. And seeing how the sausage is made and throwing out, who was it, Brett Yormark last year?
Yes.
Who just, seemed half the time he either didn't know what he's talking about or was trying to explain away something that, just do it in the dark. And you don't have to, update. You don't have to update the rankings every week. People love Selection Sunday for college basketball, and they didn't do it until Selection Sunday up until a couple of years ago. And then they made so much money off of this stupid CFP show that it's okay. We need to show where our teams stand now. And then those rankings, they're supposed to start every week. We know they don't. It just, showing the whole process is dumb. And they really screwed it up last year, even though they got the correct team in.
I agree. The way that the ranking process was really complicated. And I think that's what pissed off a lot of Notre Dame fans, is because of the way that they were ranked, how the process went for them. And boom, they were top 10 team a week before, and then Selection Sunday comes, oh my God, we're not in. What the hell happened? In my opinion, I thought they should have been left out. I think Alabama should have gotten bumped out. But again, I talked to Brian Driscoll about this back in May, and he said it himself. Notre Dame fans are going to be pissed about this, but Notre Dame did it to themselves.
Yeah, they lost 2 games, and you lost the game. The game you lost was a team that was, whatever they call it, in the same category as you.
Right.
And you're not, they're not going to make the regular season totally irrelevant. If they put Notre Dame in over Miami, don't even bother playing the regular season anymore. Just take your top 12 teams talent-wise on paper and say, well, these are the top 12 best teams. Go play in the playoff, because you lost to the 2 teams in front of you and the 2 teams that should be in front of you anyway. And same with BYU's in the conversation. They had a shot at Texas Tech twice and lost. Ultimately the playoffs too big. Just contracted down to 8.
Strength of schedule shouldn't even be involved in the process anymore. I mean, the last 2 years have kind of proven it.
It's not. And it goes back to ESPN baking in their FPI. And that's a company-based metric that they based into their strength of schedule. And then guess who runs the college football playoff is ESPN, who also owns the SEC. And there's just too much corruption in it too. There's no trust. Why are there like all 16 teams in the SEC are ranked ahead of like half of the Big Ten?
It doesn't make sense.
Nope.
And I don't think it ever will if this continues. Because I mean, what's the point of an FPI at this point if the season hasn't even started yet?
No, and with the transfer portal and all that stuff, your rosters turn over so much. You have no idea. Rankings. I get why they do the AP rankings and the preseason rankings and whatever. I understand that. If we really wanted to do strength of schedule rank, wait until week 4 or 5 or whatever, or at least until after the first week of conference play, until everybody plays their first conference game, whenever that is. So whether that's the first week of October, the last week of September, that's when metrics should matter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at it on ESPN and there's like, oh, this team has a 90% chance of beating this team in week 13. And then, they lose a dumb game at the beginning of the year and all of a sudden it's 50-50.
Right. It doesn't make sense. And I don't think it will at this point. Sammy, thank you for taking the time to come and talk with us, man. You had in the Big Ten Media Days. What's a question that you're excited? What is something that you're intrigued to kind of ask any coach at all from the Big Ten this year? What's one of the biggest things that's on your mind for this upcoming week?
Yeah, so we're going up for IU, and I want to ask Kirk Cignetti how do you find that edge? Because it has been the last 2 years. Well, people disrespect us. They discounted us. They picked us last in the conference and all that stuff. He's always good for a zinger at media days as well. But it's how do you find that edge now that people believe in you? Are you pulling something off of Twitter and X? Is it something internal? Is it a process where you watch tape? Because he has his standard. Mm-hmm. If things aren't up to standard, he'll call it out like he did with Nick Marsh and his gold cleats this year. But yeah, it's getting into the process of how do you find an edge where it's no longer people are disrespecting you. It's, people are picking you to go back to back or calling you a dynasty and stuff like that.
So you'll be just going there this Thursday?
Yep, just going there Thursday. We'll have some people up there on Tuesday and Wednesday, but mainly we're there for Indiana.
Any questions that you'd have for Petiti?
Not appropriate for the show.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Sammy Jacobs of Hoosier Huddle. What's that?
Yeah, it's like what the hell are you doing, man? You're being like the Grim Reaper meme where he goes knocking on doors. You ruin Major League Baseball and you're ruining college football.
Oh, man. PCSA cannot get passed soon enough. Sammy Jacobs of Hoosier Huddle with us talking expansion. Why not talk a little Big Ten as well? Sammy, thank you for hopping on the show, brother. Appreciate you taking the time. Have fun at Big Ten Media Days next week, and we look forward to seeing you really soon. Thank you guys for tuning on into the Southern sports scene. Make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe button down below and turn on the bell notifications so that you are notified every time we go live, post a new video or post a new short. And as always, ladies and gents, stay blessed and don't stress.